Welcome, Melissa. I'm super excited to have you on the Magnificent Mamas Collective show where we talk about health and wellness for women. I know you and I talked aside from this, but really in the connection of hot flashes, there are so many women. As a matter of fact, I had a woman tell me today that like half the population of women around the world is struggling with menopause. And I don't know about you, maybe it's just IA following me, but every time I turn around, there's something about menopause that is coming
It's
up.
everywhere. It's everywhere right now. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk about this. I'm so passionate about it. And you're right, it's everywhere. And what I find so interesting is half the population are women. So half the population, whether you're, 10 or you're 80, every single woman is going to go through this. And so why has it been this dark secret that we're afraid to talk about and we're embarrassed to talk about when it's just as natural as it's just life. It's part of life. And so I'm glad that the more is getting out there about it, but I'm also a little bit cautious about some of now we're going to have all these prescription drugs to handle it. And so I like to talk about what can we do before we run right to that. Because these prescription drugs that we're just now seeing the ads for on TV, they're new, so we don't really know what all those side effects and all that could be. So that's a whole other story. But yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot to talk about. We could go on for days. So
Well, and I love that. I love that you even bring that up because as a young woman in my late 20s, I was infertile. And they couldn't figure out why. However, I was in menopause. I was getting the night sweats. I had cysts on my ovaries. I had cysts on my breasts. And of course, they wanted to put me on the pill or back on the pill, but I was trying to get pregnant. So I was trying to regulate. But they were constantly trying to push the medicine. And the research shows that the more medicine, the more estrogen. So the more estrogen, the more we know that our bodies go into a higher balance of out of balance, right?
right,
Um,
right.
but going into that and knowing full well that for me, when I went to a doctor, she was a gynecologist and she recommended natural progesterone for me at the age of 28. And the hospital that she worked under, they actually fired her because she was suggesting holistic practices.
That
Mhm.
is crazy. How long
Mhm.
ago was that? Like 10, like
Well, I'm 51, so 28, whatever the number is. But
okay.
here's the other interesting thing about this. Her name is Dr. Helene Leonetti, and I really loved her, and she's still alive, but she actually studied under John Lee, who is an MD who did a 30-year study on natural progesterone and wrote several books about what to say when you're in menopause and premenopause. So I studied a ton. So that's why I love having you on the show because it's a passion of mine. And also, there's so many women struggling. I just spoke to a woman who's in her 40s and she didn't know what was wrong with her because she was having night sweats. And when she called her aunt, her mother and her sister and her aunt, nobody said they struggled with it.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know whether it's that they didn't have the symptoms or they had diets that were different. There could be a variety of reasons. But here this poor woman was who was feeling like she was going crazy. Um, and she's struggling by herself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I'm trying so hard to build a community of women that we can share this information so that this doesn't happen. And there's some poor woman out there who has no idea what's going on. And there's 17 known symptoms of menopause. So, there are so many. And there are so many different things we can do to help ourselves before resorting to anything crazy. And so, and I do want to talk a little bit about hormone replacement therapy later because that has been a lifesaver for me. And that maybe it's not for everybody, but it is. My own doctor is a functional medicine doctor. So she is Western trained. She has the regular, OBGYN degree. And then she went back to school and became a functional medicine doctor. So that means she goes to holistic first, then she adds in whatever Western, she needs or the patient needs. And she knew my background, knew that I'm a health coach, knew that I always go toward holistic first. And she sat me down a few years ago and she said, come over here to my side of the desk. I'm there for my regular appointment because I had said, I don't want to do any of the hormone replacement stuff. In the news, it was all terrible. And she said, I want you to sit down. I want you to look at what really is going on here. And she had study after study. These are like 3 years ago, and they were brand new studies. And she said, there's no reason why you should be suffering with all this stuff you're suffering from when you really should be taking hormone replacement. We'll do it as naturally as we can, but it's going to help prevent Alzheimer's and heart disease in you. And I have a mother who's had some heart issues. So she said, this is super important for you. You need this. And so, it's just, there's so much false information out there. So let's start unraveling what that is and talk about what hot flashes are and what we can do about them.
Yeah. So what would you say? Okay, so you had your own situation. What were some of your symptoms that you noticed that brought you to your doctor?
My first symptom of menopause was the night sweats. And I, like the woman that you spoke to, it's not a conversation I had had with my mother. My mother had a full hysterectomy at 30 years old. So her menopause was all kind of handled when I was little, through doctors way back then with medicine and all that stuff. And it was nothing she was dealing with at the age when I was an adult, if that makes sense. I was a little kid when this all happened to her. So I hadn't talked to her about it. I didn't have friends going through it. And I woke up one morning just drenched. And I thought, what in the world? And literally, like, I think 48 hours went by without anything. And here I am, like I was even a health coach then, but I was, youngish. I was in my 40s and I wasn't thinking that this was going to happen that soon. And then I realized, could that be what this is? And I let myself suffer for probably a month or two. Before I thought, okay, I really need to do something. I tried the different pajamas. I tried all kinds of things. But as I started to really focus on research, I learned about things like I had apple cider vinegar that I had read can make a huge difference with some women. Not every woman, but apple cider vinegar is something I had always taken when I was sick. So I thought, I've got it in the pantry anyhow. Let's try that. And wouldn't you know, it lessened them. They were probably maybe cut in half. So instead of having one every other night, I was having one a week and not quite as long. So that seemed to help. But then when I did go see the my OBGYN, who was the functional doctor, she immediately put me on a progesterone at night, a natural form of progesterone. She said, we're going to start you at the lowest dose. And I was literally a different person the next day. She said, take it at night. I slept the best I had slept in months. And I woke up and I thought, oh my gosh, like I had a good night's sleep. I'm not soaking wet. Like it was more than just not having the night sweat. It was this peaceful sleep where I wasn't waking up and I felt well rested. So, it was
And I
amazing.
think that's a really good point too, Melissa. Like, well, a lot of women are waking up in the middle of the night, like that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock time where they just can't get back to sleep and they just get up. So then they're running on empty because they're exhausted, but they can't sleep.
Right,
So, and they think that's just age. And however, it's another sign of menopause.
right,
Can you
right.
share some more insight on that? Maybe a woman
Well,
who's not sweating, but just waking up or falling asleep fine and not getting a good night rest.
right. I mean, there's so many reasons that we as women can not get a great night's sleep and wake up so many times. And stress is a huge one. That we have so many stresses in our lives as women in this age. A lot of times we're caring for elder parents, or we have teenagers learning to drive that are out too late at night. I mean, you name it. And we have this list of to-dos. If you're like me, I mean, I got started sort of my second chapter in starting a business in the midst of all this. And so I had all these things. And there are so many ways that we can start to try to rein that in and calm the mind before bed and get in a routine. And those things helped me a lot. One of the things I've noticed is, meditation is sort of this buzzword of, calm the mind, mindset, meditation. Everybody talks about it. But then when I get into conversations with women in this age group, not everybody's doing it because it's a little intimidating. And maybe you try it once or twice and you're like, this is just not for me. I cannot. I just had a former client. I ran into her in the grocery store, and we got into a conversation about food and what she was eating and how she was sleeping. And she said, and I tried that meditation that we talked about. And she said, Melissa, I just can't get there. She said, I close my mind, I close my eyes, and all I can think of are everything on my to-do list. And I said, I think that we make a big deal about it. It has to be perfect. I think if you're starting out and that's you have a hard time just kind of calming the mind, get an app. There are so many free apps. Start there. Start with, my favorite is Insight Timer. Funny story, I read Demi Moore's book like 5 years ago, and she mentioned Insight Timer. And I was like, I've never heard of that before. So I got the app, and I love it because there's a free version. I would not pay for these apps. You do not need to pay for them. But I got the free version. There are so many different little meditations. They're not even meditations, just kind of someone talking you through calming down and talking you through breath work. There's so many to try. There's even just music, but put your earbuds in and try it for 10 minutes. You have nothing to lose. Try it before you go to sleep at night if you have to just kind of get into that calm state. And then you can advance to the ones where there's less guided meditation and more maybe asking you a question and then sending you on your way. So you can advance and get better at it, because believe me, I've been doing this for, I don't know, 10 years, and I have days where I'm terrible at it. And I think, shouldn't I be better at this by now?
Yeah. I say it's a practice. I mean, it's a practice like anything else.
Yeah, exactly. But I
some days
think
are better than others.
Exactly. I think that's really helpful. I also think my 2024, one of the things I'm doing in 2024 is called the 24 challenge, the 2-4 challenge. And that is grabbing a notebook or a journal and writing for 2 to 4 minutes a day. And that is for anyone who has tried a journaling practice and makes a big deal of it, like I did, that I don't have 30 minutes a day to sit and write. Take 2 to 4 minutes. Everybody has 2 to 4 minutes. And what I do, I had read this somewhere, is those 2 to 4 minutes start with just a brain dump at night. You have your notebook and you just, whatever you feel like, whatever's up here, you just let it out. And then at the very end, and you can set that timer for 2 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever. At the very end, what are the things that are most important for you to get done tomorrow? Jot them down really fast. Once you've done that, every anxiety of the day is out of your mind. Everything you have to do tomorrow, it's out of your mind. Close the book, put it away. You can get into that bed and not be thinking about, oh my God, I've got this to do and that to do. And, it's just a great practice.
I love that. I love that suggestion. And I think that in itself is so powerful to again, release the fear of having to perfect the day when you can't do anything about this day, right? It's tomorrow that you can approach it, and then you've written it down so you can readdress that journal and remind yourself what it is that was on your top priority, right?
And then once
get
you
more things done.
It gets better, right? Each day gets better that you've taken those off your plate, and you start the fresh day where you've done most of the things you needed to do. And it is just a great way to kind of clear your mind before you go to sleep. Because stress is one of the reasons we can have hot flashes. It's one of, our estrogen is dropping. It's causing all kinds of hormonal imbalance, and stress can cause that hot flash in the middle of the night. So there's several other things that can cause it as well. And I did just read a study about blood sugar. Women who have spikes and dips in blood sugar is another huge reason for hot flashes. They will be, kind of much more intense if you are having issues with blood sugar, and most of us don't even know it, because we have no way of knowing if we're having issues with blood sugar. It's not a feeling that you get unless you're wearing a continuous glucose monitor, which most people are not. You aren't going to know that certain foods are spiking your insulin, and then you're having a huge dip, and at night that's going to cause hot flashes, night sweats, that kind of thing, and those will lead into the next day as well. So
Interesting. Very
yeah.
interesting. Do you find that most people have night sweats, or could they be people who like maybe feel hot during the day, like that hot flash? Could
I
you have
kind of
one and
find
not the other?
some people do have one and not the other. My sister-in-law is a good example of that. She had one and not the other. But for most people, most women, it seems to that they have both. If you have one, most have experienced both. Maybe one is worse than the other. But one of my friends had much more hot flashes throughout the day for a while, and she had no idea what I was talking about when I said night sweats. And then she called me one day and she said, "Oh my God, now I know what you're talking about." And it's really the same exact mechanism in your body. It's just one's happening at night and one's happening during the day.
Mm.
A tip for the blood sugar issue: try to eat before 7, try to finish eating, have nothing else except for water at night, maybe an herbal tea, but definitely cut your caffeine way down, like before noon. Even cut it down if you have a lot of coffee. Try to cut it down to having that cup of caffeinated if you need it, and then switch to decaf or herbal tea. But nothing after 7. Try that for a week. If you haven't noticed any different, then you may fall into a category of women who needs a little bit of a complex carb snack before bed. Something small like apple slices dipped in almond butter, so you've got a little of the protein, a little of the fiber. That can make a huge difference too. So try that for a week. But I say try going to nothing first, because that intermittent fasting is so good for all of us. So stop eating at 7, and then don't eat again for at least 12 hours, and see how that works first. And if you don't have any luck with that, then try the complex carb snack.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, so now how about the symptom of, and I know we can talk about hormones and menopause and hot flashes for hours, but the next symptom that I want to just touch base with is one that may not seem as obscure or as obvious as the others. And that's like that foggy thinking, that
Mm.
cloudiness that some of us and many women that I know, even in my own personal practice, they'll say, "Elizabeth, I'm just so foggy. I just can't think clearly. I don't have clarity of what I want to do, where I used to be so like on top of things, and now I'm forgetful or just foggy."
Yeah,
Can you
it's a
speak to
huge
that?
symptom of menopause, and so many women just feel like they're losing their mind. I mean, I've talked to so many women that think, "Oh my gosh, what is happening? I've, gone to the car 3 times and left my keys upstairs 3 times." And you do kind of think, "Oh my gosh, like, what is happening right now?" I think our storm here, my signal's kind of, can you see me okay? It
I
looks
could
like,
still see you. It's funny because I was like, wow, you're getting darker.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of strange. I'm sorry about that. But if you can
That's
hear
okay.
me, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we were just talking about how, what were we, we're
We were
talking about
talking about foggy
how
thinking.
the foggy thinking can come back to the poor night's sleep.
Mhm.
And the poor night's sleep you know, that comes back to the hot flashes, and then the night sweats, and the estrogen dropping. Like every single thing is connected, and every woman's menopause experience will be different. But, and some will have, you know, very few symptoms, some will have all 17 symptoms. But the foggy thinking is, it's all hand in hand with those other things. And really, you know, getting the balanced diet, the full night of sleep, and daily exercise are sort of the three things to start with. I think journaling a little bit about, not even, let's not call it journaling. Let's just say grab a notebook and jot down what you ate. Keep track of it for a few days. Go back and look at what you're eating. So many women think, I'm to blame as well. I do the same thing. Oh my gosh, I've done so well. I've been eating fruit and veggies and da da da. But then you write it down and you look and you think, oh my gosh, that wasn't as good as I thought. So really, you know, take ownership of it. See what you're eating. How many good carbs, and I'm talking greens with vinegar. Make sure you're having vinegar on your greens. Buy some delicious vinegars, some of those flavored vinegars. Those allow you to use a lot less olive oil, which is what I'm doing. I have discovered this company, californiabalsamic.com. I don't get anything from them, but I've recently discovered them. And a couple times a year, they do a great sale. But even when they're not having a sale, they'll throw in some samples. And so you pick a couple flavors. My favorite is there's an apple, there's a cherry. It's so delicious on greens, and your body, when you're in menopause, is craving greens, the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, all those vegetables. Look at the list, make sure you're eating the rainbow, and put vinegar on them, because vinegar and a little bit of olive oil, your body's going to just soak it right up, and the vinegar keeps your blood sugar in, keeps it flat. And that's what you want. So I've noticed a huge difference with just my health in general, but I would say the brain fog, that helps. If you're not like this, you won't have the brain fog as much, at least. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, is what are you eating? Look at what you're really eating and how much of it. Really try to take the sugar out as much as you can. I mean, it's really a cause of Alzheimer's. It really, really is. It's so bad for your brain. So try to eliminate it as much as possible. Keep it to birthday cake, you know, a couple times a year, and special occasions, and try to start using things like honey, maple syrup, things that have some nutrients and you can use little bits of.
Interesting. I know my favorite is like using dates to a date to just get rid of that sweet tooth, especially after the holidays, when I was definitely eating more junk food than that beginning of the year. Like trying to get off of the sugar is a real thing. I mean, the addiction of sugar is, they've said that they attribute it to as hard as getting off of like cocaine, which
Cocaine,
makes
it's
sense,
this,
right?
I have read that too. It's the same as a cocaine addiction, and it makes sense, because I don't know about you, but if I allow a little, it's just the beginning of the roller coaster, you know. It's so hard to stop once you have just a little. And I love the analogy. Well, it's not, I heard this doctor talk about how, isn't it funny that you're out to dinner, you have a big meal, everybody at the table is totally stuffed. And if someone said, here, have one more bite of steak, you would say, no way. But someone says, here, have a bite of this key lime pie. And you're like, oh, of course, a little bite's fine. Because,
Right.
you know, you can always fit in that sugar. It's crazy, but it's
I
just,
know.
you know, and it's really will cause brain fog.
Well, and I also feel like it causes a lot of other problems, and we tend to joke about it as a society of like, oh, I just needed that piece of chocolate, or I needed that piece of candy, and I think, again, to your point of really like supplementing the vinegar, which probably will create or curb the craving for
Mhm.
sugar,
Yes.
um, and supplement with fruits. So you are eating more fruits that are natural sugars rather than um, obvious white sugar or cane sugar. So
Right. Right.
yeah. So
Yeah, and
that's
they speak it in
powerful.
everything, now. It's just like you have to read every single label because it's just in everything. It's crazy. And so that's one thing I've been helping clients with is just go to that ingredient list. And there are so many words for it and um so many things you just don't want to eat. Maltodextrin is a buzzword for me right now because I'm finding that it's in so much and it's so bad for you. Just read the labels. If there are words that you can't, can barely pronounce or that have too many letters, just know to put it back.
Don't eat it, right?
Yes,
Don't
don't
consume
eat
it.
it. Right.
Well, I also have heard like just shop the perimeter of the grocery
Yes,
store. Anything
absolutely.
raw or natural like that you're going to find on the outside of that grocery
Correct.
store is not in boxes.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And another huge nutrient for women in going through menopause, I just read the statistic that 80% of women during menopause do not have enough vitamin D. And it's something that if you're checked in your 40s, you may be fine. As you get older, every year after the age of 40, your body has a harder time converting sunshine to the vitamin D that it needs. So it's going to drop, drop, drop. And there's not enough in our food. There is no way you could get enough from just a diet. You wouldn't want to eat that much salmon because our salmon is so contaminated, and you
Right.
don't want to eat that much dairy. And it's we add it to dairy, right? And they're now adding it to plant-based milk, which is good. So read the label if you use a plant-based milk. That's good. You might be getting some, but I really encourage every woman to, even before you get checked, you're not going to have such a high number that getting supplements is going to hurt you. You have to have a crazy high number of amount of vitamin D in your system in order to have it be too much. And nobody has that amount. So it's not a big deal to buy a supplement and take it every day and get tested somewhere. Don't run out. You don't feel like you have to run out and get tested tomorrow. Get the supplement, take it for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, then get tested and see where you are. But it's such an easy thing to take. Just make sure you take it with vitamin K. It's the only way that your body really assimilates it properly. And I think it's just easier to buy a supplement that's vitamin D and K combined so that you're covered and take it every day. It'll help so much with your bone health. Osteoporosis is huge in women during menopause. We lose so much bone density, and it really helps with everything, cancer and cardiovascular disease and all of those things. So it's really an important nutrient to get during menopause.
Wow, that's awesome. That and I have heard that, but I appreciate you bringing that up because not enough people are talking about that. So again, the D combined with K because of the absorption. So, and here's the other thing too. I mean, as women and as we're aging, many of us are mourning the loss of the younger woman that we used to be, right? So we're trying so hard and spending a fortune and buying all the creams and all the things on the outside to keep us healthy. So it's really, really important and maybe may save you time and money on taking care of yourself with good nutrients and a diet and journaling as you shared
Right.
and breath work and doing some guidance. So thank you so much for really bringing up those three major topics with foggy thinking, sleep deprivation, and the hot flashes. I know I would say those are three things that I've heard most women complain about the most. So you really have fulfilled us with I would say the top three things to do. But I know you told me that you have a 17 checklist,
I do. Yes.
and we will
Symptoms.
leave that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, 17 symptoms that are the kind of the true menopause symptoms that doctors have, found and documented. So yeah, I would love to have that available to anyone who wants to look, and you might be surprised and say, "Oh my gosh, well, I've been feeling that and maybe I should go." And it's a very simple test your doctor can do to see where you are on the menopause journey, where your levels of hormones are and how, whether you are entering this time or not.
And with that being said, I think that women can reach out to you and get the support and the guidance to help them, one, to combat, but also to prevent the horrific symptoms that some of us have experienced. So we will also leave your contact information on in the show notes for how to reach you, and we'll definitely have you back because I think this topic is so broad. We didn't even go into like dryness and vaginal dryness and all the relationship issues that menopause can cause, because not only are we not feeling good about ourselves, but also our sex drive. So I think, Melissa, could we just say to be continued?
Absolutely. I mean, we could talk for days. So, and I think we're helping so many women by just talking about it. So I would love to chat more with you. So let's figure that out and continue.
Yes, and please be safe. I know you have a storm coming in, and I want to just be mindful that I want to like just put you in a big cocoon and keep you safe. So,
Well, thank you. You too. It's probably coming to you after me. So